Problem of good and evil devotee. If God is responsible for everything, then why should people speak of good and evil, virtue and vice? One commits sin also by the will of God. Isn't that so? Another devotee. How can we understand the will of God? Master. There is no doubt that virtue and vice exist in the world. But God Himself is unattached to them. There may be good and bad smells in the air, but the air is not attached to them. The very nature of God's creation is that good and evil, righteousness and unrighteousness, will always exist in the world. Among the trees in the garden one finds mango and jackfruit. And hog plum too. Haven't you noticed that even wicked men are needed? Suppose there are rough tenants on an estate. Then the landlord must send a ruffian to control them. The conversation again turned to the life of the householder. Master. To the devotees. You see, by leading a householder's life a man needlessly dissipates his mental powers. The loss he thus incurs can be made up if he takes to monastic life. The first birth is a gift of the Father. Then comes the second birth. When one is invested with the sacred thread, there is still another birth at the time of being initiated into monastic life. The two obstacles to spiritual life are woman and gold. Attachment to woman diverts one from the way leading to God. Man doesn't know what it is that causes his downfall. Once, while going to the fort, I couldn't see at all that I was driving down a sloping road. But when the carriage went inside the fort, I realized how far down I had come. Alas! Women keep men deluded. Captain says, "My wife is full of wisdom." The man possessed by a ghost does not realize it. He says, "Why, I am all right." The devotees listen to these words in deep silence. Master. It is not lust alone that one should be afraid of in the life of the world. There is also anger. Anger arises when obstacles are placed in the way of desire. At mealtime, sometimes a cat stretches out its paw to take the fish from my plate. But I cannot show any resentment. Master. Why? You may even beat it once in a while. What's the harm? A worldly man should hiss. But he shouldn't pour out his venom. He mustn't actually injure others. But he should make a show of anger to protect himself from enemies. Otherwise they will injure him. But a sannyasi need not even hiss. A devotee. I find it is extremely difficult for a householder to realize God. How few people can lead the life you prescribe for them. I haven't found any. Master. Why should that be so? I have heard of a deputy magistrate named Pratap Singh. He is a great man. He has many virtues, compassion and devotion to God. He meditates on God. Once he sent for me. Certainly there are people like him. The practice of discipline is absolutely necessary. Why shouldn't a man succeed if he practices sadhana? But he doesn't have to work hard if he has real faith in his guru's words. Once Vyasa was about to cross the Jamuna, when the gopis also arrived there, wishing to go to the other side. But no ferry boat was in sight. They said to Vyasa, "Revered sir, what shall we do now?" "Don't worry," said Vyasa, "I will take you across. But I am very hungry. Have you anything for me to eat?" The gopis had plenty of milk, cream, and butter with them. Vyasa ate it all. Then the gopis asked, "Well, sir, what about crossing the river?" Vyasa stood on the bank of the Jamuna and said, "O Jamuna, if I have not eaten anything today, then may your waters part so that we may all walk to the other side." No sooner did the sage utter these words than the waters of the Jamuna parted. The gopis were speechless with wonder. "He ate so much just now," they said to themselves. "And he says, 'If I have not eaten anything.'" Vyasa had the firm conviction that it was not himself, but the Narayana who dwelt in his heart, that had partaken of the food. Sankaracharya was a Brahmajnani, to be sure, but at the beginning he too had the feeling of differentiation. He didn't have absolute faith that everything in the world is Brahman. One day as he was coming out of the Ganges after his bath, he saw an untouchable, a butcher, carrying a load of meat. Inadvertently the butcher touched his body. Sankara shouted angrily, "Hey there! How dare you touch me?" "Revered sir," said the butcher, "I have not touched you. Nor have you touched me. The pure self cannot be the body nor the 5 elements nor the 24 cosmic principles." Then Sankara came to his senses. Once Jadabharata was carrying King Rahagana's palanquin and at the same time giving a discourse on self-knowledge. The king got down from the palanquin and said to Jadabharata, "Who are you, pray?" The latter answered, "I am not this. Not this, I am the pure self." He had perfect faith that he was the pure self. "I am he. I am the pure self," that is the conclusion of the Jain Anis. But the Bhaktas say, the whole universe is the glory of God. Who would recognize a wealthy man without his power and riches? But it is quite different when God himself, gratified by the aspirant's devotion, says to him, "You are the same as myself." Suppose a king is seated in his court, and his cook enters the hall, sits on the throne, and says, "O king, you and I are the same." People will certainly call him a madman. But suppose one day the king, pleased with the cook's service, says to him, "Come, sit beside me." There is nothing wrong in that. There is no difference between you and me. Then, if the cook sits on the throne with the king, there is no harm in it. It is not good for ordinary people to say, "I am he." The waves belong to the water. Does the water belong to the waves?